Greetings, enlightened ones. Thank you for joining your Reverend here today. In today's video, we're going to be going over my top 10 favorite goth rock bands in 2025. As many of you guys know, Darkwave is probably going to be my favorite genre of music when it comes to the alternative scene. I've mentioned this many times, so as I was actually going through what I would consider some of my top 10 favorite goth rock bands, I'm just looking through all of my artists that I have, and I'm just like, damn, I have a lot of Darkwave stuff and hardly any death rock or even goth rock for that matter. Much of these artists are going to be new, some of them are going to be old, and a lot of these artists I actually grew up with when I was going through high school. We're going to go into some pretty good nostalgia trip here, at least with some of these goth rock bands, because I grew up more with the goth rock, the 80s, and death rock scene when I was trying to discover myself in high school. A lot of my heavy metal roots, I have abandoned a lot of my metal roots. I mean, I still listen to metal. Trivium, In Flames, Dark Tranquillity, Children of Bodom. I still listen to some of my heavy metal stuff that I used to listen to when I was in my early elementary years, but I've drifted away from a lot of that, and when I got into high school, goth rock was there for me. The 80s, all of it was there right in my face, and it's what I grew up with the most. But as I age and as I've gotten a lot older, the Darkwave stuff has pretty much taken over much of what I actually enjoy listening to. So there were some really hard decisions to make when it came to finding which of my favorite top 10 artists there were. But without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into this, and I'll show you what my top 10 are. So number one is probably going to be The Cure. I know this is a big surprise, or maybe not so much of a big surprise just because every goth person knows The Cure and loves The Cure. I want to be more specific here. I really don't care for a lot of Robert Smith's newer stuff. I mean, I think where he sold out, I'm going to get a lot of shit for this. I already know. I'm probably going to get massive dislikes for this, but you know what? I'm somebody that speaks my mind and speaks my opinion on things and have no fucking shame in doing it. But I feel like Robert Smith really sold out when the Wish album came out. The whole Friday I'm in Love shit, I feel like that wasn't true Robert Smith. Maybe that's just my opinion. I felt like the true Robert Smith was when he made Disintegration, Pornography. He was more well known for how much of a poet he was and the way that he wrote his lyrics and just how articulate they were. It honestly, Pornography is probably some of his best work that he's ever created, and I felt like that was the true Robert Smith. When Wish came out, that was basically the end of Robert Smith. The big record companies took over him, and he hasn't been the same since. I was hoping with his latest album that he released back in 2024 that it was going to be a big game changer. Maybe he would actually go back to a little bit of the darker roots that he used to do. Sure, you can throw in some of the more happy go-getter fucking shit, but unfortunately, I listened to the new album. I forget what it's even called because I really don't care for a lot of these older artists and their newer works, but it was whatever his latest album was that just came out literally last year. I listened to all of it and I was not much of a fan. So there you have it. You probably have already known that my favorite album here is probably going to be Pornography because I've already listed it in the past that it was my favorite album in my Darkwave video. And my favorite song from Pornography is probably going to be Cold. And my second favorite is probably going to be the Sisters of Mercy. This comes as no surprise that you're going to have The Cure and Sisters of Mercy literally right next to each other for any person that's in the alternative scene. But it is an absolute classic. The Sisters of Mercy, it goes hard. And I don't understand or how I could see anybody that has been in the alternative scene and never heard of the Sisters of Mercy, because every club at least spins one of their songs every night. If it ain't Marianne, it's going to be, hopefully I'm saying this right, Lucretia, My Reflection. They play that one almost on repeat. I mean, clubs literally play and overplay the shit out of Sisters of Mercy. So I know you guys have heard them once or twice or even 10 times. You know, I don't know a whole lot of their history. Definitely it goes way back before my time. But they produce an amazing old classic style 80s goth rock feel. They're almost very similar to the Cult. They're almost side by side with each other, although the Cult is more, I guess, glam rock. But a lot of people consider the Cult goth rock, even though I consider it more glam rock. But I guess it's because it's a darker version of it. But I would consider the Cult and Sisters of Mercy side by side with each other. My favorite album is probably going to be First, Last, and Always. And my favorite song is going to be 9 While 9. Okay, third, we have another classic here. It's going to be Clan of Xymox. I think a lot of the younger guys, our younger crowd, probably isn't going to know too much of Xymox. Some people do, some people don't. They're also a very old goth rock band from the 80s that are pretty much side by side with The Cure, Sisters of Mercy, So I got a lot of these old classics up here. I actually got to see Xymox live with the Chameleons, Twin Tribes, when they actually played last year out here at the White Oak Music Hall. It wasn't until about the end of his showing that he actually started playing a lot of the older stuff, which I appreciated. But I really don't care for a lot of Xymox's newer stuff. It's a little too EBM-y, poppy. He's kind of going back to his roots, which is actually really nice, so I can't completely 100% say that, because I know his latest album, it actually goes a little bit more back into his roots, so I'm kind of contradicting myself here a little bit. But Xymox definitely earns a spot within third place for me, just because it is still a classic that I grew up with. My favorite album of all time is going to be Medusa. And then my song is going to be Agonized by Love. All right, let's get into a little bit of the newer stuff. So number 4 on my top here is going to be Mortal Boy. This guy is kind of a little bit newer. He's been producing music since about the early 2010 era. I discovered him in like 2018, so at the height of me, you know, it's funny, a lot of my newer artists that I've discovered in like my hype within the alternative scene, right? So I discovered this guy at about 2018, 2017, I'd say, maybe even 2016. He comes from LA. I've kind of conversed a little bit with him on Facebook, but he makes some pretty good modern goth rock. Yeah, he's super underground. A lot of people don't really know a whole lot about him, even though he's been around in the scene. My favorite album from him is probably going to be Chronoception, and my favorite song from that album is going to be Only in Death Will She Be Heard. All right, number 5. This is probably going to be no surprise either. She Passed Away. These guys have, I wouldn't even call them indie anymore. They're a newer type of artist, I guess, in the alternative scene that kind of emerged out of nowhere too. I don't know how they got so popular over some of these other newer artists whom I think, sorry, I'm going to say it, there's a lot of other artists, in my opinion, that deserve way more recognition than these guys. Don't get me wrong, She Passed Away produces some really good classic goth rock, but there's so many other artists on my list that I could name that deserve more recognition than these guys. But nonetheless, hey, these guys have deserved it. They've earned it. There's not a whole lot I can say about them. I've never seen them live. All I know is I discovered them years and years ago, probably back in like 2013 when they were just at the height of their career, or starting out in any way. This is going to sound very millennial of me or boomer of me, but I knew She Passed Away before they even got big. Like, I remember seeing them on YouTube and they had hardly any views on any of their videos. And it's kind of interesting that they've blown up as much as they have. But to be honest, I don't know anything about them. I've never seen them live. Honestly, they're not on my list to really ever want to see live. I don't really care about them that much. However, I do honestly appreciate the goth rock feel that they have. I know they're, I think, a Turkish band, so I can't even pronounce any of these songs. I can't even pronounce their album names, but I will showcase the album that is my favorite, and I'm going to botch the shit out of it in the English language. So my favorite album, I'm probably going to botch the shit out of this. I actually got to look at my screen to see how you even say this, but it's going to be I think it's their latest album that they still have released right now, which is Disco Anxiety. And my favorite song is going to be, I'm going to spot the shit out of this, I already know it. Cellular Deniz. Let me see if I can redo that. Cellular Deniz. I don't know if I even did that right. But at any rate, that is going to be my favorite song from them, from the Disco album. All right, we're gonna have some nostalgia right here, man. Like, ooh, you little Gen Zers, oh, you better get ready for this one. We're going to the MySpace days. So number 6 is gonna be Anima Virus. I don't think anybody knows of this artist, and he's pretty old. He's from like 2006 2008 era. Okay, this isn't a pretty old one, and it comes back from the MySpace days, as mentioned. I actually discovered this one from my mother way back, even my own parents for that matter. So Anima Virus, I remember 12-year-old me, 13-year-old me on MySpace and discovering this band. I'm not entirely sure how the internet was. It was such a fade from that long ago. But at any rate, I think this guy started on MySpace before, you know, obviously the days of Spotify, the days of any other real media platforms that ever came out to light. I don't know a whole lot about this artist to this day, just because he is super underground and he's from Italy from my understanding, but he's made at least one album. He kind of dick-teased that he was going to produce another album a couple of years ago, but I have not heard anything since. I have not seen anything since, unfortunately. So he's only got one album, but if you're looking for a really dark goth rock type of album, this guy takes the cake for it. He only has one album, which is going to be The End of Eden, which of course is going to be my favorite album. My all-time favorite song from this guy is going to be Blood from Heaven. Alright, enough of the new slash old new with Anima Virus, and now we're going into number 7, which is going to be London After Midnight. Yeah, these guys are another classic goth rock band that came out. I guess they had more notoriety in the early 90s, mid 90s, just because that was when the whole new romantic goth was starting to come out. Honestly, a lot of goth was starting to become more mainstream, I guess, in the 90s, so you had a lot more artists that were kind of producing a lot more goth rock and the new romantic shit, and London After Midnight kind of was one of those bands that kind of fit into the 90s, so much so. I only got to ever see them once live when I was living in California. I saw them with my father out in LA, out in Hollywood somewhere. To be honest, I wasn't really all that impressed. I was a little younger. I think I was like 19, 20 when I saw them, and I felt so stupid because I remember being there and there was this really cute chick that I decided to want to talk to, and I remember fumbling the ball so much so because I forgot that they had cover bands before the actual band shows up, and I could have sworn that that was London After Midnight. They just kind of were a copycat, and I remember telling her, I was like, he really changed, didn't he? And I felt so stupid because I realized that wasn't London After Midnight. That was just some cover band that was kind of like London After Midnight. I wouldn't even consider them a cover band. They were just some kind of band copying them. And I just felt so stupid in front of her. But yes, London After Midnight. My favorite album from them is going to be Selected Scenes from the End of the World. And my favorite song is probably going to be Spider and the Fly. God damn, this fucking incense, man. Getting to my eyeballs. Holy shit. I was trying to be a little bit spoopy with the Plague Doctor here, but god damn, man. It should make me cry. Holy shit. Alright, number 8 on the list. These guys are very underground, even though they've been around for a while too, since I would say late 80s, early 90s as well. They also were like London After Midnight, so I guess this is a perfect, fit right after London After Midnight, which is going to be my 8th, The Frozen Autumn. Yeah, these guys were more discovered, I guess, in the 90s alongside with London After Midnight. The funny thing is, though, a lot of people don't really know The Frozen Autumn, too, at the same time. People know London After Midnight, but nobody knows for The Frozen Autumn. I don't know what it is, but, like, nobody in clubs knows of them much. Like, sometimes you'll hear them played, but it's very rare that you'll actually hear these guys being played in clubs. I've never seen them live. I do enjoy their music, though. It is a duo band, sometimes a female singer. I think her name's Roxanne. I don't remember her name. I think it's something like Roxanne. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but it's basically a duo band where sometimes the dude will sing, sometimes the chick will sing. It's kind of like Laban and Hanover. Sometimes the dude sings, sometimes the chick sings. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot else to say when it comes to The Frozen Autumn. They're just a very underground but old school band that didn't really get a whole lot of recognition. My favorite album from these guys is probably going to be Emotional Screening Device, and my favorite song from them is Everything Real. Alright, we're drawing near our final little few here. So number 9 is going to be Suspiria. These guys are also very underground as well. A lot of people have probably not even heard of these guys. Sometimes some clubs will play Allegedly Tragedy Dance Floor, if that's the right song, which is also my favorite song, which I'll repeat if I've gotten it wrong towards the end of this, but that song's sometimes played in a lot of clubs. Super, super underground band. I can't really say a whole lot else with them just because their history and their log is just so small. But if you do want some pretty dark, gritty goth rock, these guys do take the cake as well. My favorite album from Suspiria, though, they don't really have but one album from my understanding, but they do have an EP, though. And I actually enjoy, and it's going to be funny for the next artist that I'm going to talk about as my number 10, because it's the same thing here. I find that sometimes when it comes to goth rock and death rock, the EPs are more not so refined, very gritty, very it just feels very old, like very nostalgic. And so, you know, they get a little more refined as they actually officially release, you know, from their demo to, or EP to the actual album. I actually like it when it's not so refined and cleaned up because it has a very old, style to it. And Suspiria has that when it comes to their Tragedy EP. If you guys actually get a hold of the Tragedy EP, it's probably going to be a lot better than their actual album, which is The Great and Secret Show. Because I feel like allegedly Dance Floor Tragedy is actually, it sounds better off the EP than it actually does from their official release. Which is funny because a lot of the clubs I feel like use that same version of that song from the EP than they do from the actual album because of that same old style feel about it. But yeah, Tragedy EP is my favorite album, and allegedly Dance Floor Tragedy is going to be my favorite song. Number 10 is probably going to be Peeling Gray. So I know a little bit about this artist, and unfortunately he actually disbanded the band back in like 2017, 2019. I could be wrong, but it was fairly recently that this guy actually disbanded the band. This band was also one of the artists that I actually grew up with, because in 2012 I think I mentioned that I kind of discovered myself in 2012, how I got into the alternative scene, and this was one of those starter artists that I actually kind of grew fond of. These guys produce a really unique sounding goth rock feel. The songwriter, or well, the artist, the singer's name is Andy. I don't really know his last name, but my parents were good friends with the singer. He actually comes from LA back in California, so my dad and my mother would probably know a little bit more about him than I do, just because he was a newer artist that was kind of promoting him and his band out in like Release the Bats out in LA and some of the other clubs out there. But yeah, I actually had made a custom album art for Andy, and I remember giving it to him. I don't know if he really cares much or remembers, but I remember he did like it when I sent it to him on Facebook, because I was so inspired to do some crazy shit with some of this, and I felt like I had a good connection with him because my parents had good connections with him. But yes, so these guys have created realistically only like 2 albums. The World's Not Really Sorry, and then I think their other album's just called Peeling Gray, like the artist name. I have their demos, which most people don't even have, because Andy had actually given out his demos to my parents, and then I acquired them. The demos sound so damn gritty and dirty. I love them. I absolutely love them. They just sound so old. If you guys ever get the demos, they're out there somewhere. I know they have to be out there on the internet somewhere. But yeah, his demos are out there somewhere. His demos just sound so much better, which is just the Peeling Gray demo. If you guys manage to acquire them, I would highly recommend getting the demo and comparing it with the Peeling Gray album versus the demo version of that album. And it just sounds so much more dirtier and so much more old sounding, just the way that it was produced. And I would have to say their demo EP is probably going to be my absolute favorite, I guess, album, if you want to call it that. And my favorite song from them is going to be The Strip. Well, brothers and sisters, I think that's going to do it for this segment of my favorite genres here. I'm not sure if next week I'm going to be doing another one. I kind of really want to start focusing on voice acting. I really want to start focusing on my car, doing something. I'm just trying to find the time to do it because I get so damn tired. And the right weather to film my car too, and the right equipment. I don't have the best equipment in the world. I do have things lined up for the Mustang as well, like a big brake kit that I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get rid of the 17-inch rims that I have on it for some 18s. It's kind of funny because I kind of feel like I'm like one in very few alternative dudes that are into the car scene. But yeah, just waiting on the perfect weather, the perfect time. Honestly, trying to find the perfect spot to film my car too, because in Houston, I'm trying to find a really good filming location for filming your car, and I'm doing research, and I just have not decided where to do it. Trying to find the equipment to do it as well. Like, I'm probably gonna have my iPhone on my head to showcase the exhaust system I have on it and everything, but doing some really ghetto shit because I don't have the money to spend in terms of quality equipment here. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you guys have any suggestions for future videos as well, I'm also all ears. I'm actually trying, like I've talked about in previous videos, I'm trying to create a community here. So I do have a Discord, which I don't know why I haven't been linking in my description. Do note though, we're some edgy motherfuckers, so if you can't handle edgy humor, then it's probably not for you. If you want to go into our Discord, we do have a Discord down there. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next few videos. Peace out.